Welcome to another unit in this course on economics. This time I'm going to talk about the balance of payments and its specific sub-balances. So if we start in general, we have this overview, and I want to start on the very left and work my way towards the overall balance of payments on the further right. So if we start here in this part, all of these aspects, which later can be summarized into the current account balance, are in one way or another related to aspects of income. So that's also in some ways called the income part of the balance of payments. Well, why income? Well, the first two, that's actually on exports and imports. But someone will profit from the exports and imports, and usually that's some kind of company. So that's about company income from exports and imports. And if we consider the balances of these two, we get this by simply subtracting the imports from the exports. So here the trade balance is given as the net exports. So this part is basically expressed if we get net exports. And we have two parts here as well. One part usually is only called income. That's not really very well informative. This usually means or includes those payments which occur if you live in one country, but you commute to work in another country. This in Germany happens a lot, for example, with Germans living in Germany but working in Luxembourg, or people living in Poland working in Germany, people living in Slovakia but commuting to Vienna. And in this case, you earn your income in one country, but you live in another country, so your income is transferred from one country to another country. And that's what this income balance actually summarizes. Is the income flowing from one country to another? Well, usually this part is not really very big, because not a lot of people live in one country, commute to another country. The only country where this actually might be of significant importance might be the Vatican. But that's a whole different story. Another interesting point, however, are the so-called current transfers, which also contain something like remittances. What does this mean? Well, it's also about working in one country, living in another country. However, as compared to the income part, this is not commuting. In this case, people move, for example, for half a year to one country, work there for like half a year, send the money they earn home, and then after half a year, after 1 year, after 2 years, they get back home. That's then referred to in this current transfers, and this money which is sent back, this is referred to as remittance or remittances. Again, this is in most countries not really a very large position. However, makes sense to mention that in most industrialized countries, this is actually negative because money is leaving these countries, and a lot of developing or transition countries, this is a positive part. There are even some extreme examples like Tajikistan where this made up a significant share of the GDP. However, in most other countries, this also is a relatively unimportant part of the current account balance. So, in summary, usually the current account balance consists mainly of the first two versions, so mainly consists of the net exports. Okay, so here we have the current account balance. net exports income position. Then we have the capital balance. Well, the name already says it. That's on capital, on transfer of capital. And this can be split up into two parts. In portfolio investments, that's like short-term transfer of money. You buy stocks of Sony. Sony is not like a German company, so money is transferred abroad. But if you resell the Sony stocks like 1 month later, that's not long-term. Also, if you buy Sony stocks, usually you buy less than 10% of Sony stocks. So that's also not considered a strategic investment. That's portfolio investments. If, however, you do long-term strategic investments, greenfield, brownfield investments, if you start a joint venture, form a new subsidiary, a new company in a new country, that's long-term strategic investment. That's called foreign direct investment. And that's the second part of the capital balance. So the capital balance includes the portfolio balance and the net capital and net foreign direct investments. So net foreign direct investments, we can then also summarize as with they increase if we actually have capital inflows. They decrease if we have capital outflows. So this is actually the net capital inflows. Here as well, usually in economics, we focus because of its long-term nature, mostly on the foreign direct investments. Well, then the third part, that's here the foreign exchange balance, which again, as the name says, is mostly relevant in logging some kind of currency reserve changes, on monetary policy aimed on impacting exchange rates. That's something which is actually listed or is booked in the foreign exchange balance. But again, this usually, or in most countries, is just a minor position. Especially fluctuations usually happen on a broader scale only if you have a fixed exchange rate regime. With flexible exchange rate regimes, there's not a lot of fluctuations in most cases happening in this foreign exchange balance. And well, then there's only one thing left, but this is just for whatever we cannot put in any of those three parts. That's what we call here the residual. And just to pick up the rest which is left if we build these three balances. And well, if we add all of these four perspectives up, that's what gives us the balance of payments. If this is positive, we have a surplus. If this is negative, we have a deficit. And if we say that our macroeconomic goal is foreign equilibrium or foreign economic equilibrium, foreign exchange equilibrium, depending on how we want to call this, then we mean that we have a balanced balance of payments. So here we actually have a value of 0. This balances out. And well, that's then basically it, with me telling you on the basic idea behind the different parts of the current account balance and summarizing this even further of the balance of payments. So I hope you enjoyed this session. I say goodbye and see you next time.